Hello and welcome, everybody. Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. We're going to do our evening ablutions. We're going to do a quick audio check. Can everyone in the back row hear us? I hope you can. I really hope you can. We'll watch the chat pensively. Yeah! First time I'm a professional, a consummate professional, by the name of DM Dan. Hi. This is Explorers of Elsewhere. We are back to play some more Tales from Elsewhere, which is our kind of short, snappy, episodic mini adventure campaign set in the Elsewhere setting using the Daggerheart rule set. It's still an open beta. We patiently wait with bated breath for the full release. But it's not just me. I'm accompanied by Theo. Hello.
Hello, Dan. Hello, everyone.
Hello. We've also got Livy.
Hello.
Hello, Livy. And we've also got Dan.
Ahoy there.
Oh, hey. And we have a new face. Hello, Georgia.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Marvellous. We have lost Nate somewhere down the back of the sofa, although he's in the chat, so clearly he's got his phone. But yes, Georgia is stepping in as our newest player for certainly the next tale, the next short adventure, and perhaps, you never know. Depending on how well you do, if you pass your probation, we might keep you on for the third one as well. Yes, only time will tell. We are, as I say, we are back. We've finished the first adventure. Three of you plus Azakar, Nate's player character, ventured to the coastal shores of New Prosper, which just so happens to be the location of the first campaign, Year 1, which you can catch here on the channel. But we've sorted that out. There was a problem, and then you literally smashed it. You literally uppercutted it to bits. And so it's sorted. And now we move swiftly on to our next adventure. Yeah, if you're interested in stuff like Daggerheart or Tabletop RPGs, we've got loads of them going on. Make sure to like this video for a start, but then also subscribe to the channel. And if you do, you'll be able to chat to us as well in the chat. Yeah, we've got Blades in the Dark campaign going. That's nearly finished. We've got all sorts of new stuff on the horizon. Campaign 3 rolling through at some point in the indeterminate future. Yeah, it's an exciting time. I reckon we are going to jump straight in. Alfrek. The day grows late and the sun sinks low in the sky as you make your way north of town through the rolling hills and the relatively new wheat fields. There's a light rain that patters down on you that's beginning to soak your coat a little bit. After about 20 minutes or so of walking along this muddy road, you come across a rocky crag, upon which a slender stone tower made out of white-grey stone pierces the horizon. It's several stories tall, and it's topped with a silver conical roof. In fact, it looks very much like the towers that you've grown up reading about. Surrounding the base of the building is a small garden of colourful flowers and leafy bushes. There aren't any windows on the tower, just a simple set of wooden double doors where the path meets the building. Alfrek, as you knock on the door, you hear a heavy sound of metal locks unlatching, and with a clunk, the door begins to swing open. you are presented as a large door swing open. You step into a large open room with a beautifully polished white marble floor. Immediately in front of you, dominating the centre of the room, is a rather quaint fountain that you have a sneaking suspicion has a water supply that is somewhat magical in nature. There's a hubbub of conversations throughout the room, and glancing around you see about a dozen or so people. Some of them you recognise, some of them you don't. In the back corners of this room are 2 staircases that rise up and away, and there are a number of doors that line the other 3 walls of this entrance foyer. As you take a step in out of the rain, your feet sink slightly into the welcome mat, and it feels like a warm breeze brush over your toe claws. And you watch as whatever enchantment on this doormat is, it begins to wick away the mud on your shoes and dry them, leaving them perfectly clean. And as you look around, we will very quickly transition to a map.
Oh.
Can you all see that? Hopefully you can. Have you got just a double check? Have you got vision?
Yes.
Does
a
Georgia
of
have
the
vision?
Square we're in.
I can. It's a very small map on my screen. I don't know if that's something I've done.
No, that is absolutely fine. It is quite
Excellent.
quite small to begin with.
You can also zoom in and out on your mouse if you need to.
So, Alfrek, as you walk in and a number of faces turn to regard you, I say some of them you recognise, some of them you don't. Describe to me what everyone sees when they look at you.
They see quite a slight looking dragon scent, bright blue scales, obviously the dragon head, 2 little horns sort of slicked back, dressed in very expensive but not entirely colourful clothes. He's got a silk cravat, obviously a very well-made coat, and as people turn to look at him, he tries his very best to smile and raises a clawed hand. He has the look of a boy who's gone to his first party and has never experienced a hardship a day in his life.
Okay. Fair. So, as you... let me just plonk some of these down. As you glance around the room, as I say, some of the faces you see, you recognise, some you don't. But let me just turn all of these on. We can actually turn that off. There we go. Cool. So, glancing around, going in from left to right. Over on the left, you see a white-haired, elderly Lorivar woman. You recognise her as Lady Gwendolyn of Granlund Manor. And she is currently talking to a small, like a diminutive little figure. Hang on, we can get that up. So yes, Lady Gwendolyn is speaking to, you notice she's dressed up to the nines. She's got her finest liveries on, glistening gold wing ornaments, kind of emblazed on like both ends of her collarbone, rising outwards. A deep, luscious-looking red cape draped over her shoulders, and she is talking to this small little figure. You can recognise him immediately, even from the back of his head, by his stature and his peculiar hair, which actually looks more like a collection of rocks. And you recognise Mr. Montgomery, the mayor of your town of Seldavon. He is currently engaging in chit-chat with Lady Gwendolyn. They seem he seems quite into the conversation. She glances up at you, and you see some of the mischievousness that she's known for, as she kind of gives you an ever so slight delicate kind of roll of the eyes, as the mayor continues wittering on. At the back of the room, you can see a Laravar woman, a red-haired Laravar woman, dressed in a fine chef's outfit. You might not know her, but you assume her to be the chef of this magical mansion. She is talking to someone you definitely would know of. You know of by reputation, if perhaps not by actually meeting them. But it's a wolf. This chef. Let's pop that up for everybody. Boop. So this Laravar chef. You notice a badge of effectively it's a badge of like culinary expertise, like an award, like a medal almost, pinned to her chef's hat, and she appears to be talking to a rather broad-shouldered wolfkin man. And whilst this may be the first time you've met him, you don't skip a beat in assuming that this is Agathar, the mage protege of the master of the house, Magister Ullic. The two of them are deep in conversation. Behind the fountain, your eyes kind of open wide as you see perhaps it's someone that you've wanted to meet, whether or not you have or not in the past. But it's a definitely an imposing silhouette. That of a statue. Literally statuesque. You've heard tales of this animated statue. Its chest, like its torso cavity, and up through its neck and head and kind of out of its shoulder blade area, all hollowed out. A number of metal organ, like pipe organ, like pipes protruding from his shoulders, and what appears to be a stringed instrument over the hole in his abdomen, creating a beautifully acoustic reverberation core. In the twinkling candlelight, and as you glance around, you see that there are a number of candles just kind of floating in the air around this foyer. The light glimmers off the two green crystalline hands that the statue has, Stradivon. The hands themselves are beautifully crafted. You know them to be intricately magical in nature, but allows him the dexterity to be able to play the stringed instrument in his chest beautifully. There are also three faces you definitely don't recognise. So, first off, stood by the fountain, perhaps slightly with his back to you. How is Cal presenting himself as this dragon scent enters the room?
I think Cal is wearing his usual explorer garb.
Mm.
Like it's clean. Don't get me wrong, it is very clean, but it is definitely what's the word? Just his normal clothes. He's not made an effort in any other way.
Sure.
You know, he's tidy, his hair is clean. You know, he's not covered in muck and blood, but it's still his usual stick.
Okay.
Yeah, he does not look too pleased to be there, but then when does he look pleased to be anywhere? So we're kind of it's just a normal day for Cal. Yeah, so
Okay.
that's it really.
Well, as this floating tray of champagne glasses hovers past, and I can only assume you snatch it up to give you something to take the edge off all of this. Yeah, you glance over your shoulder and you see this newest arrival. What is your first impression of the dragon scent that just walked into the room?
I would imagine from the expensive clothes, he is a very wealthy young man. I would also imagine just from the kind of hopeful, cheerful demeanor that seems to be presented, he is how do I put this? Probably a little green around the ears.
The fins.
Yeah, definitely like
Spiky
green around the
ears.
gills. Um, probably knows a lot of information, but he might be useful for information gathering for whatever purpose we are here, because I'm not sure Cal knows directly yet, but we'll discuss that later. But he might be useful. But then everyone in this room is useful to do their job, he supposes. Depends on why they're here. So
Sure.
he's noted it for later, for now.
Okay. Vanya, what are you doing in this situation? How comfortable do you feel in this rather highbrow kind of arena?
It's probably quite clear that Vanya's never really been in this scenario before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily that he does feel a bit uncomfortable because he's like, what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also like a very much like a new experience, like blase, like vibe around Vanya, as like, for example, the trays come past and Vanya's like, finally the drinks, and he picks up two glasses and immediately crushes them by accident. He's like, oh damn it, and picks up another two and tries to be a bit more gentle as he tries to chug some of these drinks, and looking at the statue like, do you talk? Like he's very he's not really I think it's more like he can't really read the room properly.
Sure.
He's just being himself within the space. And in terms of, are we assuming that we're not necessarily having to dress up for this specific scenario, DM, or
It
are
is.
we meant to be dressed up?
It has become. Well, it's up to you, but it would be abundantly clear that this is a bit of a high flyer event. We'll swing back round to why you three are here soon. But I will let you choose. Like, it might have been mentioned in passing, but you were told it certainly wasn't mandatory. but whether or not
Okay.
you took that as an invite or a threat or something in between is up to you.
The funny thing is, despite what Vanya wears, which is quite like an explorer's practical gear, like sleeveless like jacket that he he does show his abs. Let's face it, he's a hunking dude, but he does have this one nice item on him, which is his cloak. This big white overall cloak that wraps completely around him when he wants it to, which in this scenario he probably would, to hide his more rugged look underneath. But yeah, the coat itself isn't. Obviously, there's always this like stereotype of like having these furs on top of it. This is not necessarily the case. This coat probably was bought in the city or something, or like as like a celebration of becoming an explorer of elsewhere.
Sure.
So this is the one like the actual dress of it. So it's a white cloak with black like fur like mane that wraps around like the neck area, and there's almost like a militaristic look to it, with like various like sharp suit like patterns with on the cloak to make it look quite regal in a way. It's the one and only nice thing he wears, and he uses it for traveling and hiding what he's wearing underneath when he needs to. And in this scenario, this like almost militaristic looking white cloak with black fur, it just wraps around his entire body at this moment in time. He only just reaches out from underneath the cloak when he wants to like get a drink and accidentally smashes the glass.
Sure.
But yeah, so he probably hasn't dressed up for the occasion.
Okay. As the champagne flute kind of cracks and you and like it, a part of it falls to the ground, you just asked this statue person a question. The hulking figure like turns, and you find it odd watching the stone that it's made of move like flesh and bone. It seems like it seems like it's fully malleable as the statue turns and moves. But the statue turns to you and says, "Yes, I do speak," and then bends down to pick up part of the broken champagne glass and pop it back on another tray that's kind of floating in the other direction. The statue then kind of nods and excuses themselves.
That was got the chatter. Oh, never mind.
Rayri, as you glance around this room, and there's a part of me that's imagining that you would have certainly picked up on the fact that the windows that you can see are presenting you this beautifully like picturesque night sky with a crazy number of like shooting stars. The stars themselves are like really like beautifully bright, and like the windows are interspersed with large purple banners, like rich purple banners with gold embroidery across them. Looking around, you notice that purple and gold seems to be a bit of a thing here. But also you've noticed that this room that you're in, like you saw the tower on your way up the path with the other three, but now you're here, you can tell that there's rooms off in all directions, there's doors all around you. But it's certainly the case that this building that you're in, this mansion of sorts, is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. How's that making you feel?
I think like Riri isn't really one for like being inside. So like It's a little bizarre. She's kind of shuffling around, sort of looking to see if, like, kind of surreptitiously, just kind of feeling walls, looking along, trying to work out, like, why the sky is so perfect, but then getting distracted, and then looking for vol au-vents, and then just kind of just bimbling around, as she's trying to work out, what this place entails, I guess.
Sure.
Because they've come here on a purpose, and she's already feeling a little strange.
Sure. Nate raises a very good question. How does Vinny feel about all of the peculiar smells and the floating trays going around the room?
I think as Ray's going around, like, she's got, like, these little, like, vol au-vents that she's picking up. Just kind of licking the mousse off the top, like an Oreo, and then just kind of chucking the cracker to Vinny, and then taking another one, and licking the top off, chucking the cracker to Vinny, and he's just going around.
Great, marvelous. Well, between the three of you, you are here for a reason, and for better or worse, it's not to be part of this gala dinner. So, after your return from New Prosper, after a little bit of rest and recuperation, the next job that you've picked up was a relatively simple but surprisingly well paid, like, courier job of sorts. Off the back of a suggestion from Archmage Merry, like Meridius, he has asked you to go see, to head through one of the portals to a recently re-established outpost of called Seldavon, to speak to their kind of resident mage, an old fellow, an old Lorivar called Ullic. Ullic has been quite quiet recently, Mary informs you, but he has made noises that he has something that he wishes to return to Avamore. So the three of you have been tasked with going to this, like, Ullic, you've been told, has been very kind of insular and kind of public shy recently. So the opportunity for outsiders to kind of be in his space is relatively far and few between. So when you've heard of him, when Mary heard that he was hosting a gala dinner, it was the ideal time for the three of you to go pick up whatever it was that Ullic had to give you. And perhaps that is why the three of you feel a bit kind of sore thumb as you look around this room of, like, hoi polloi high flyers. But Alfrek, you're as a resident of Seldavon, why is it that you were invited?
It's quite a high status thing to have me or someone that looks like me at a party of this variety. I think Alfred's quite aware of that. He quite likes the attention, in a quite a shy way. He quite likes being looked at. But he's also well aware that he tends to be invited to these things to just be. But also, he doesn't know what to do with his hands. He doesn't know how to stand, and he doesn't really know how to talk to people. So being is quite awkward.
Okay. Of the individuals here, who is it that you approach first? Like, whose conversation do you just kind of, like, slide into?
I think he's spent sort of, like, while everyone's sort of getting themselves situated, he spent like the past 5 minutes hovering awkwardly by the fountain, sort of just out of in Cal's eye shot, sort of grabbing vol-au-vents from trays, sort of very nervously putting them in his mouth, and then just walking a little bit closer towards, is it Stradivon?
Yep.
It's like practicing how to say hello with the eyes of a man who's just spotted a superstar.
Okay. In which case, Cal, you watch as this dragon scent just sort of like slides around this fountain bit by bit. And I mean, Cal, perhaps your attention has been caught by this kind of walking statue. But yeah, Alfrek, as you approach, Stradivon turns to regard you. Have you two met before? Do you think?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think we have met before.
May I help you? Says the statue.
Hello. He sticks out a hand, still so covered in vol-au-vent.
Stradivon looks down at your hand, your outstretched hand, covered in vol-au-vent, and then extends his own, their own, and it's a peculiar sensation, because the crystalline hands that Stradivon has is like it's crystal hard, but it's both kind of cooling. But there's also this odd kind of tingle that skitters along your palm as the two of you shake hands. Pleased to meet you,
Alfrek.
Alfrek.
I just wanted to say I am a huge fan of your work. I've not heard it, but I've read it, and stunning.
Stradivon. It's an odd thing. So Stradivon smiles as you shake hands, and then as you release, his face kind of returns to this really stoic but stern looking kind of look of it's a somewhat imposing kind of stare, but then the face changes again, and I'm glad to hear that someone has heard my work. It is, I've had some time to mull on it. Perhaps more time than others. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yes, as a statue, I imagine quite a lot of thinking time. Sorry.
The face reverts back to that kind of like baseline stern look. And there's a slightly awkward extended silence. How do you know the mage?
Oh, my father lives down in town. He knows everyone, and so I know everyone.
Marvellous. It is good to know many people. What is it that you do, Alfrek?
I read a lot, and I play the violin.
Ah, a musician. Well, if you are a fan, and if you're a fan of music and of my compositions, I've recently actually got back from a trip to the coast. I was composing an opera about two sailors. It's a story from before the war, long before the war. And I wanted to feel the aura to embellish it, to imbibe into the composition. I fear it may be my best work yet.
I can't wait to hear it.
Stradivon, like the stern face twists into a smile like a gentle smile, and then reverts back to that stone, that stony look. You notice as you're having this conversation that there's a wolfkin in a rather large, slightly unwieldy, kind of white and black fur coat, just like stood behind Stradivon, like every so often just kind of leaning round, trying to like get in on the conversation. But yeah, Alfrek, you immediately notice that like this wolfkin man behind Stradivon, the Asavar, you think it might be in a Sanguivar. You think he's got the red eyes, and this little Ignan sprite to your left, they don't fit. But yeah, what do you do? Like Stradivon just kind of smiles and nods. It seems like the light chit chat has just kind of petered off a little bit. Yeah, what do you do? Who you approach next, Alfrek?
I think it's that when you hit an awkward silence, especially with someone that you really admire, you sort of either try to fill it or like just pretend it's not happening. And I think Alfrek sort of makes very brief eye contact with this other person, and just like desperate little wave. Hello.
Seeing this weird scenario happening, and Vanya having no idea what's really going on here, carrying a couple of drinks, I think he kind of just joins in the conversations and dear, I thought, Cal, that you had a fan. I picked you up the drink, but some of them smashed on the floor. And I pass over a drink to Cal, and I'm like, sorry, now the gaze coming to you, Alfrek, is I don't believe we've met before. Who are you?
Hello. I'm Alfrek. He tries to do like a little bobbing bow, and it's clear he's practiced this quite a lot, but it doesn't quite work in a crowded environment.
Or fancy?
It's who are you?
Well, my name is Vanya. I am an explorer of elsewhere, much like my companions Cal here and Rayri over there. What's Rayri doing right now? As I'm like looking over.
As you point over to Rayri, like Vinny's already like licking between Alfrek's fingertips because he's found the Volleyball. It's still like just.
Alfrek is so like caught up in the panic of socializing, he hasn't noticed.
Yeah. Now you're surrounded. You've been like flanked like 3 ways.
I think his eyes go so wide when you mention that you're explorers.
Yes, sir, as you
look
can
at
see,
you.
we are explorers. We are here on a task. Or there seems to be some sort of fancy meetup, dress up. Do you know what's going on here?
It's a party, you know. It's a shindig, a get together.
A party! I can get down with that idea. We need to liven the place up a bit.
Did you say explorers?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we are explorers of elsewhere.
Proper explorers in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, we just like fought like a fire ghost again, man. You know.
Here?
We do every day. We met like a croak that was like, oh, hello, I'm a little croak. We were like, wow.
Amazing.
With that certain interaction, GM,
Yeah.
something doesn't seem quite add up, and Vanier's not. Vanier's sort of insightful, but it's all based off instinct rather than actual being able to tell people's body language.
Yeah.
So in this certain scenario, I think Vanier is listening for the pace of Alfred's heartbeat and smelling the air, do I get a sense through this interaction that Alfred really is as green-fingered in this scenario as they're coming across to be? Or is there like a hidden agenda behind this
On
interaction?
Georgia, on a scale
Hmm.
of 1 to newborn child, just how like innocently green are you?
If you lock a boy inside a library for the first 18 years of his life and give him a violin, you get Alfrek. There is no pretense to this man. He's never met a pretense in his life. He is genuinely delighted.
In which case, I would offer that Cal, you're watching sort of like Vanier interact with this like this waif of a dragon scent, and by comparison, you being one of the most grizzled things to grace this world, like you're looking at this guy, this dragon scent who's got, it's clear, abundantly clear, 0 world experience. It's all hypothetical. It's all come from a book. Probably the most traumatic thing he's experienced is a stubbed toe. But how does it feel when like this dragon scent is looking between the three of you, just absolutely googly-eyed?
For Cal, it rings alarm bells. Because people with no experience do stupid things
Yeah.
to prove themselves, or because they haven't the experience to not get into trouble, or again trying to prove themselves in situations because they want to prove they can handle dangerous things, and 10 out of 10 times out of 10 they certainly cannot handle the things they are trying to do. So Cal, and it's meant with good intention. Cal is like, I'm keeping my distance from this kid. I'm just trying to not engage too much because this kid is a walking hazard.
Sure.
Clearly from just his eagerness.
I will say, as you're glancing at this dragon scent, Alfrek, you believe his name to be, like past him, stood just in front of one of the statues at the back of the room. You see a Lorivar chef and a Wolfkin mage, and it's clear, like you saw that you caught, you tagged them having a natter with one another, but you watch, like the chef has since excused herself. You presume she's heading back to carry on like with meal prep. But this Wolfkin mage is sort of like glancing over. His attention seemed to be piqued when the name, like when the word explorer, like when Alfred was like, "Are you explorers?" But like he seems to do, he's doing that thing where he's sort of like keep side-eyeing you, keeping an eye on you, whilst making it look like he's not really paying you attention, but it's like he's earwigging.
As he's doing this, like Rayri is currently reenacting Azakar's death and then reborn in as she's very entertained by the fact that Alfred is so interested.
She is watching with rapture.
Well, Ravi, as you do your very intense Andram performance, you feel a shoulder clap. Sorry, you feel a hand clap on your shoulder, and you turn to see that this Wolfkin mage has just strode and fundamentally inserted himself into the conversation. My, that sounds like a fascinating tale. We must compare for I have recently come back from a journey.
Just like looks, and she's got Vinny in it, like a headlock. Just releases Vinny.
But you mention a crystal tower. That sounds fascinating.
It was like really, really, really big. And if you touched it, you'd go crazy. And we
And
managed
who
to
might you be?
And he ate a bit. Then he was like, hello. How to do?
Rayri, you notice that, like, as you're explaining the story, when Vanier says, "Who are you?" this Wolfkin mage that's just sort of like looking at you with this like big beaming smile, just like effortlessly looks away from you, just stops paying you any kind of attention, and why? I am Agathar, the protege of the mage Ullic. It's this whole little party, this gathering. Well, it's in my honour. You say, I've recently returned from a dangerous trip, and we're here to celebrate my victories over the denizens of the wild of elsewhere. And I'm glad that each and every one of you could be here to witness just how great my story was.
I have a question, Dan.
Yes.
How old is this pup? Because I feel like I need to know. If I'm comparing the greenhorn Alfrek, I should treat everyone equally. And if he's coming across like he's cock of the walk, as it were, but he also looks just as, like, not as junior. Alfrek is obviously at the very bottom of the scale, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if this looks like someone who is literally talking, crap, then I think Cal would be quite mindful of that.
Sure. You would wager that this Wolfkin warrior is probably somewhere in his, like, late 20s, maybe early 30s. So it's clear that he has seen some years. Given that it's clear that he's a mage.
Mm-hmm.
So you suspect that he's probably got some sort of experience from the war as well.
Yeah.
But there is definitely a lot of bravado going on with this chap. Like, you've seen Vanier boast like no one else, but this.
But I've also seen Vanya actually do stuff.
Yeah, I'm 100%.
And I'm always usually quite impressed with what he does. Not that he probably says it, but Cal is usually very impressed.
Sure.
He stuck around, right? That's usually a good sign.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Cal will just very discreetly move into another team, and then you just wouldn't know what's going on.
Sure.
So yeah, cool. That's good to know. I think that will be something that Cal will keep in mind as this conversation continues.
Well, Agathar, the mage, looks at you all, and when we're finished with our meal, I'm going to I'll be showing off the bounties of my Zaga. It will be, and the things that we came back with will blow your mind. And he sort of looks to you and he gives you this like winning smile that feels utterly fake. Like it's the practice, or it's like the politician smile. As he looks to you, and like Rayri, you notice he's still got his like hand on your shoulder, and like as he's kind of looking around at you, at everyone, like the hand is like squeezing slightly tighter. But yeah, as this all happens, you hear a door from like behind you swing open, and there's a rhythmic staccato sound mixed with some sort of like light shuffling. You turn to see the elderly Lorivar and the Terran sprite at the side kind of step out the way as the door on the left hand side of the room opens, and out shuffles possibly one of the oldest goblins you've ever seen. And the goblin is wearing a the goblin's wearing a purple coat, like a jacket, a butler's jacket, with a diamond pattern, and you notice the hues of purple are the same as the purple kind of banners that are hanging down from the wall. The goblin's got this long, sticky out, like salt and pepper moustache, and the depth of his wrinkles beggar belief. Like, the depth of the wrinkles on his forehead beggar belief. And he kind of looks at you all through these teeny tiny little pokey eyes, that are mostly obscured by this large bulbous nose.
I've spoken to the Archmage,
The goblin starts.
while he was reading a few hours ago, and he has informed me that our final guest is delayed in the slightest. As such, the Archmage has extended an invitation for all of you to his sitting room, where he hopes Stradivon would provide a performance, while Agatha recounts his expedition northwards. Once the Justicar has arrived, the Archmage, will join everyone for the banquet.
And, like, silence has fallen across the room while this... It looks like the goblin's paining himself to, like, talk loud enough. But the statue that's kind of next to you, Vanier, turns and... Well, of course, it will take me 15 minutes to prepare, but I would be more than happy to oblige, he says. And there's a playful little bing, like C note, as he plucks one of the strings in his chest cavity.
Of course. Well, I will invite you all free reign of the estate to explore at your whim, though I would ask that you refrain from the Archmage's quarters,
He says, pointing a doddery finger at the staircase behind you all, leading up to a closed door that's covered in kind of gold filigree.
He does not like to be interrupted from his research, and does not appreciate guests in his private quarters. He will be down when he is ready. 15 minutes, and then we shall meet in the parlour.
And he points the same doddery finger at the door at the back of the room.
You are, of course, welcome to stay here and enjoy the wine, browse the library or the laboratory, or perhaps the collection of relics would be of interest in the gallery,
Pointing the doddery finger a third time to the other staircase out of the foyer.
Please make yourself at home.
And then with a small exhalation of breath, the goblin slumps slightly and then slowly shuffles to turn around and dawdles back out of the foyer. I do say, the Terran sprite pipes up, Bendel's looking more sprightly than ever, isn't he? There's no laughter from the Terran sprite's little joke. But he seems somewhat oblivious as he goes back to talking to the elderly Lorivar lady, Lady Gwendolyn. But like, as you're kind of all looking in this direction at Alfrek, you see her for a second time like glance at you with a "help me" look on her face as Mr. Montgomery launches back into his monologue. Let's be honest, it's a monologue. So yes, you've been given permission to go wanders. You've been told not to go into the mage's quarters because he does not appreciate strays and vagabonds. So we'll put a little oh, that's not an exclamation mark. Put a little exclamation mark here, just like that. Not allowed up there, but otherwise you have free reign of the mansion. And yeah, you can move around freely. Unless you would like to stay here and have a little chat with some of the other guests.
I think Riri has shrunken herself out of the grip of little mage friend.
Yeah.
And kind of cornered herself back round the other way, hiding behind Daddy's.
Yeah.
Should we have a look?
Yeah.
There's the cow in Cow's ear.
Yeah. Like, where would you like to go in the like? Is there anywhere in particular you'd like to go in the mansion? So it was mentioned. So you are the parlor is to the north. That's like the main sitting room. But yeah, there's a library, a laboratory, like a relics gallery up the other staircase. Obviously, you would have seen as the goblin disappeared back through the door that leads to the dining room, like the banquet hall, and you would then assume the kitchens and the pantry would lie beyond that. But yeah, where is it you'd like to have a little nosy round?
I think if Rary whispers in Cal's ear, like, where do you want to go? I feel like Cal will be like, do you want to check out some relics? No stealing, though. Just gonna look.
Can we take our
What?
Just stage whispers. Take our new friend. The blue guy.
If you want.
Okay.
My God, we're like Rary's adopted another like pet. Great.
Just up to Alfrek, like, see some relics. You want to come with?
Yes, I would love to.
Come in.
Okay. Vanya, are you following behind the others? They seem to be going to look at the relic room.
Yep, I'll be following suit.
Okay.
Probably just in passing, just tapping the other Wolfkin on the shoulders and be like, look forward to hearing this story then later. Catch you in a bit.
The Wolfkin mage kind of beams you that winning smile and kind of claps you heartily on the back. And no, in fact, he goes in for a warrior's hand, like arm grip handshake, with a clap on the back, and he sort of like nods very affirmatively.
Yeah, I'll receive that and give him a little gentle nod and like,
I will
just
receive
walk on
that.
up.
Okay. So, in which case, yeah, as the four of you, Alfrek, you appear to be, you appear to be being escorted from the foyer.
Very excited.
So yeah, as you follow the explorers into the relic room, we'll move you all up in there, as the four of you filter in, Cal, you're sort of like the last to enter in, but you kind of take a moment to glance over your shoulder at sort of like the gathered guests, the awakened statue, this wolfkin mage, the elderly Lorivar woman, the Terran sprites, well, you can hear the dithering old goblin butler. And you don't know why, but there's just something that doesn't sit comfortably in your guts. As pairs of eyes kind of glance up to the four of you as the door swings closed. And you just get this unshakable hunch that this is not going to be as quick and easy a job as you expected it to be. And with that in mind, we're going to grab a quick break. So, if you are enjoying this, make sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more of this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications when we release new content, because there's loads of it. And also, if you subscribe, you get to talk to us in the chat. We are going to be back in 15 minutes, and we will carry on with this absolutely innocent, nothing's happening gala dinner. See you all in a bit. Bye 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 bye. All across the unknown world, rediscovery pushes ever onwards to find the lands and people lost. All thanks to our brave explorers.
Hi, I'm Dan, and I'm playing Vanya the Wolfkin Warrior.
Hey, I'm Livy. I'm going to be playing Rayri, the Sprite Ranger.
Hi, my name's Theo and I'm playing Cal, a Sangvar Guardian.
I'm Georgia, and I will be playing Alfrek Stormborn, a Dragon Scent Bard.
And my name is DM Dan. I'll be the GM in these adventures. The further we go, the more we learn of these magical tales from elsewhere. Hello, and welcome back everyone to Explorers of Elsewhere's Tales from Elsewhere. Hi, I'm DM Dan, and I return with 4 schmoozers in the upper echelons of society. We rejoin our Explorers +1 as we go wandering around the magical mansion of the Archmage Ullic, who's invited some people to a gala celebration dinner type thing, because his protege has recently come back from a daring and dangerous adventure. Whilst we're waiting for the final guest to arrive, our explorers have been given the opportunity to have a little wander around the mansion, and they have taken the opportunity to explore the trophy room. As you step in, as the doors opens, the obnoxious glitter of gold gilding strikes your eyes. Marble plinths and pedestals ringed with gold display dozens of artifacts from years of adventuring. Wands, medals, crowns, skulls. The wall is adorned with the mounts of a dozen strange, horned or tusked creatures, and one particularly large fish skeleton. Each object is labelled with a small description of exactly where the trophy came from and how it was won. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 plinths that are more noticeable, like more prominent, more eye-catching than the others. And we'll call them 1, 2, 3, 4 in case you want to have a little look. But Rayri, as you were the one to kind of shepherd everyone in, yeah, what, like as you look around this trophy room, what is it that, what are you looking at? You've got a little bit of time to kill before this final guest arrives.
Ray's taking it all in, like in the candy shop.
Yep.
And would I want to go see the is it a tiny skull on that plinth? On your yeah, there.
Yes, there is a flicky. There is There is. It's actually, it's not a skull per se. It is an amulet laid on its back with a skull. It's It's a skull with its kind of jaw open as if it's talking. But you notice that the jaw itself within the amulet is actually hinged. So right now it's not quite closed, but you get the feeling if you were to pick it up, this jaw would just kind of like swing freely through the amulet itself.
How high are the plinths?
They are irritatingly Lorovar height. So like for everyone else but you're all just kind of like looking at the stuff in the room normally. But Ravy, you have to like proper tiptoes.
I'm
But,
going to regret this, but Cal will offer to pick you up. In a very dad-like way. But only because he can then stand enough away that you can't touch it.
Okay.
As you pick Ray up, she's like, "Do you think it's a test?" And just as she's trying to touch it.
Probably.
Deep sigh.
Maybe not.
You
Truly is dad.
so as you heft up Rayri, Cal, you have a look at the small plaque on this plinth, small plinth, and it says the skull of Jirgo. Using and then in sort of like in a little kind of parchment, like handwritten parchment slip, like you might see at say a museum, a curated museum of sorts. You presume this to be the handwriting of Ullic. Wielding this amulet giveth the user profound abilities to impose suggestions upon others.
Not cursed. Not good. Let's not touch that.
Sounds pretty good to me.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
What's Vanya looking at?
So Vanya is also in this sort of matching the excitement vibe, like going up to kind of ignoring the pedestals for a minute to go up to the beasties on the wall and looking at the big like the biggest one and be like, "Really, look at this one! It is huge.
So
I wonder what this beastie is."
Are you looking at the largest one that still has like flesh, or are you looking at the ginormous fish skeleton? And when I say fish skeleton, I'm picturing it as like, when people mount fish on plaques, but it's enormous. It's enormous. Like those those singing fish, but it's the love child of those singing fish on the plaque and the T-Rex skeletons from the end of the first Jurassic Park film. Like, it's enormous.
I mean,
you could lose Rayri in it. Enormous.
I mean, I was definitely aiming at the blue-headed, like dinosaur-looking dragon thing head, but I didn't realize there was a big giant skeleton at the top.
Well, there are also horned and tusked creatures. So yeah, there's this creature that you're looking at. It's got a crown of horns, like a thick, scaly hide. There's a part of you, perhaps it sits a bit uncomfortably, that it looks somewhat draconic in nature. So to mount like if it were draconic in nature, and this mage just slain it and then mounted its head on a wall, that would be borderline heresy for a start. So perhaps it just looks like a dragon. You hope, maybe. Either that, or the cojones on this mage are so great that he doesn't give a shit.
I'm guessing a bunch of these creatures, I'm assuming, are things that I've probably not seen before. So Vanya is more thinking of, now I wonder if this was alive, and I hunted it myself. What kind of meat would I get from it? I probably could make a really good stew out of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe some skewers, perhaps.
It looks like the cheeks are particularly kind of meaty and chonky. You suspect that the bite of this creature would have been utterly, utterly savage, but all of that sort of like work has just really kind of... You catch yourself slightly salivating at this the thought of this dead creature's cheek flesh.
If only I could just find one in real life myself. I might be able to make something really tasty.
Makes notes.
Don't wanna fight it.
This is how we die, Dan. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, the
No, it's future dinner.
Both Dans. Both of you. Just
the other like creature head that you notice that catches your attention. It's a curious thing. It looks that the shape of its head is similar to that of a horse, but it's smaller, and the fur is coarser, kind of shaggier. It's grey. The face is flatter, actually. Like, the snout isn't as long as a horse's. But interestingly, it's got these two kind of big curved horns that kind of jut out the side of its head and like curl down. And you can tell from the jaw structure that perhaps it was a herbivore. Like, it looks like it had big back chomping teeth. But yeah, these really kind of big, long, curving horns. You wager that if you were rammed by this thing, it would really hurt. But then you wonder if it is a prey creature, because you notice that it's got 6 eyes to look sideways, forwards, and up. So it makes you ponder, because prey creatures tend to look sideways. Predator creatures tend to look forward, but this one looks in all axes.
And you're doing that meme where like
Yeah, like. Yeah, it's just I've never seen such a creature before.
What's Alfrek looking at?
I think Alfrek is looking at his new friends as they sort of bustle in around this horde. He's still quite starstruck. I fancy this must seem pittance to the hordes you've seen in your time.
I mean, we as a group haven't had much chance to really have too many adventures together yet. So I can't speak for everyone, but I have hunted some good things in my time, and when we get chance, I might be able to whip up a good meal from one of those catches one day for you.
That sounds quite fantastic. You haven't seen much the outside.
And Vanya is now like studying you over, and your reaction is like, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself? You not gone out much? Not explored around your home? I hear you're a musician. Is that where your passion lies?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm not allowed out very often, but I hope to change that. I've always wanted to be what you are, really. And
well,
I'm sure
you should be an explorer of elsewhere then. I'm sure with enough experience, you could make an explorer out of you yet.
Just looks at you with these big, big eyes.
Oh, and for the nerves, and I pick out some like random, like you see as Vanya's had this like big coat, it slightly parts, and you can see the more rugged outfit underneath, and his abs showing. And there's a little bag on his side that when he flips open, like bits of frost comes out, and he pulls out this jerky.
Sorry, I've just dawned on me that this coat you're wearing is just giving me real strong, like, 80s pimp coat vibes.
You want to see my collection?
You want some jerky?
perfectly creased abs there.
Yeah, Vanya pulls out a piece of mystery meat jerky and is like, here, for your nerves.
Is it that obvious.
It will help you, trust me. Chew on this. It make you work through that feeling.
He takes the mystery meat.
Just imagine just me and Cal are just watching.
It's like, yeah,
Think what he
we
does.
just turn round, just watching, like, oh no, is that it again with the mystery meat? Not again.
Do you chomp down on the mystery meat?
He takes a very polite bite.
It is pretty much jerky, but it has a slight exotic taste to it, but not much because it's hidden underneath the salt and peppery flavors. It's actually a pretty darn tasty bit of jerky. As I'm now, because of that, you get 3 hope.
Yay!
Oh!
And I do too, as I use my Soldier's Bond feature once per long rest.
As the two of you chow down on goblin jerky.
Thank you very much.
Just to explain for those who don't know the feature, once per long rest, if you compliment someone or ask them about something they're good at, you may both take 3 hope. But I've also agreed with them that part of my whole cooking roleplay here is trying to get, cook things for people, have a bit more substance to this feature.
As long as you don't vom, you get your 3 hope.
Yeah. So yeah, you please take 3 hope, and so do I.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So Alfrek and Vanya are up to 5 hope, and us plebeians are still down on 2. Very good. Well, as you kind of bite into this, kind of tough, chewy, but he's right. It's very well seasoned, very strongly seasoned. Alfrek, as you kind of glance around these plinths, these small kind of display plinths, is there a particular one that catches your eye? And the answer can be 1, 2, or 3.
I will go for 2.
2. So yeah, you turn and look at the plinth next to you. The plaque says spell render, and sort of like underneath the protective kind of like glass lid, display lid that's under, you see a very ornate, quite viciously curved looking dagger, with a number of small kind of black gems studded in the blade, like from the hilt end, starting slightly larger and then getting smaller as they move up towards the point of the dagger. Spell render. A vicious weapon to use upon other magic users. Hath certainly decided a few arguments in mine time.
How very friendly.
Cal and Rayri. Cal, you've got Rayri under your arm. Is there anything in particular that you're doing or looking at?
Pointing to the next one.
The next one.
Cal will just very quietly obey and go to the next plinth.
Sure. Tell you what.
Class.
1 or 2, left or right.
1.
1.
Ah. Sorry.
Well, Rayri's looking right, and you take her left. So this plinth has the plaque. Curiously, the plinth is empty, like there's nothing on it, but it says the Wilder Shard. And the handwritten description is a powerful foci of a primal nature. Twas recovered from a temple of heathens, and the subject of many a lengthy study. But you notice the little kind of display cushion is empty.
Is it invisible? Is it being invisible?
Could be. Probably not, though.
Are they in glass plinths, or are they just a
Yeah, so thinking about it, they've got the glass cake lids. Yeah. But yeah, this one's empty.
Oh.
There's no
Maybe
lid.
it's being
There's
studied.
actually no lid. There's no lid on this one. The others there are. But this one, there's no lid. It's just the cushion. But the cushion's empty.
Maybe people are looking at it, studying it.
And let go on. Like, I've been egging you on. 4 for 4. Who's looking at the last plinth?
Oh, Vanya.
Yep. As everyone else is sort of dispersed to other areas, Fanny will just turn around and see what it is.
You see on the final plinth a jet black iron circlet. And as you look at it, it catches your eye because you just kind of get the feeling that it's made of metal, but it doesn't seem to reflect light very well at all. Like, you wouldn't even say that the metal is tarnished, because you'd see the light would catch on the imperfections and the damage of a tarnished surface. Now this just seems to be, it just doesn't seem to reflect light particularly well. The plinth, the little plaque says, "Do not touch." As an aside, also, if anyone would like to be rolling dice for things, because we might go through this whole adventure without ever rolling a dice. But yeah, if you want to do like knowledge styly checks, by all means, just pipe up and we'll have a look.
Well, I just turn around instantly and be like, this one only says do not touch. Doesn't say any fancy things like the other ones do. I wonder why.
Perhaps it's his favorite.
I'd like to roll, please, DM. I would like to use. I don't think I'll use like a hope or anything, but I'm curious to see if any of these artifacts or relics have been used or discussed during the war.
Interesting. Okay, so like a history.
Yeah,
of
like a
sorts.
history check, really.
Okay, so that's going to be a knowledge check, methinks.
I has no knowledge, but let's find out. Be a straight roll.
Okay.
So, so that's 12 with fear.
With hope.
No, 12 with hope.
12 with hope.
Sorry, 12 with hope.
12 with hope. Okay, so you go up to 3 hope. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, 12 with hope. And you're just trying to see if you've heard of any.
If there's anything that, like any of these artifacts that strike me as something that I might have been heard of that's been used or recovered or anything like that within the war.
Sure. Well,
with the war background.
Looking at it, you look at the spell render, the dagger, and certainly during the war, their like anti-mage weaponry would have been in like quite high demand, simply because of the powerful spellcasters that were dominating the war, especially towards the end. Is it a little bit weird for a mage to have one in his abode? You don't know. Like, it's whether or not it's did it belong to him? Was it something that was it a trophy that he took from an enemy mage? Like, you don't know. But yeah, it's being like, it would be like the Wicked Witch of the West having a swimming pool at home. Like, it's just a bit weird. You off the back of 12. You also glance at the Wildershard plaque. And the fact that it's supposed to be like a natural focus of primal magic, so you would immediately know that therefore this artifact must be relatively new, given that the phenomena of primal magics, born of the world spirits, is approximately 18 months old. They didn't really they literally weren't around before then. So yeah, that's clearly like the newest edition. So yeah, perhaps it's getting kind of tidied up or kind of display prepped or whatnot. But yeah, it's also curious that presumably an arcane user, you presume this mage would be an arcane user, so yeah, to have a primal focus, it seems like the description on the handwritten description seems to be like it was taken almost by force. So yeah, that makes you wonder how Ullic came into possession of it, much like Spellrender, I guess. The black iron circlet that says "Do not touch." Well, I mean, there's not much that you can intuit from that, but perhaps just savviness tells you that if you see a light absorbent black circlet with a sign that says "Do not touch" in a mage's trophy room, that might be pretty good reason for that.
Mildly cursed.
Yeah, it's not going to be like the arcane thermostat or anything. Like it's probably some bad stuff.
Bad juju.
Bad juju, and certainly, and finally, the amulet. You tell me whether during the war Cal was ever subjected to enchantment magic. Because I think that will flavour how you feel about an amulet that seemingly lets you enchant people.
I get the feeling that that sort of magic makes Cal very uneasy.
Sure.
Like, I don't think he's a man that looks at ease when it comes to magic anyway, whether it's divine or arcane or primal.
Mm-hmm.
He has knowledge on it due to various reasons from his upbringing, but in terms of how he feels about it, it is very much a magic and I do not get on. We are not on the same wavelength. So I think if there was ever an occasion, which there probably was during the war, where he was subjected to magic, even very briefly, it's always made him feel a bit sick, I guess. So I don't think he, like, I when he was saying to Rory, like, keeping away from that, I think that was like a genuine reaction of like, keeping away from that. Yeah, like, he is a believer that, there are better ways to convince or make people do what you want them to do than enchanting someone.
Yeah.
There's a talent in being like, Cal does not have that talent. He's not saying he can, but he personally believes if you want someone to do something, you prove to that person that they are either the person to do it, or convince them that you need their help. Like, that's his shtick. So yeah, it makes him feel uneasy.
Sure. In which case, as you kind of tussle with that uneasiness, the four of you hear a sort of like a commotion from the foyer, like behind you, and you notice that the other guests are beginning to move into the parlour. It would see if you realise 15 minutes has already been and gone, and Alfrek, this is you certainly wouldn't want to miss the opportunity to see Stradivon playing.
He turns with a little excited gasp, and he's already on his way to the door.
In which case, yeah, as the four of you begin making your way out the trophy room to follow into the others, by all means, you can start moving your character tokens over. You head, like, as you enter into the parlour itself. It's a spacious living room, complete with chairs, large plush couches, and a massive rug woven in the image of a enormous brown furred bear. There are musical instruments and 4 large windows displaying a, admittedly fake, image of the outside world. A small beach of glittering sand and rolling waves on a brilliant blue sky. And as you enter, you see that a number of the other guests have already kind of taken their seats. The elderly Lorvar Lady Gwendolyn, is sat on a kind of a reclining chair. Agatha is sat on a regal-looking high-back chair near a fireplace at the far end. Mayor Montgomery has sat in an armchair near the door. And Stradivon is in the centre of the room. And as you walk in, Alfrek, you notice that he's kind of manipulating little tuning pegs that are cleverly disguised as kind of rivets on the metal, the armour of his chest piece. And there's that kind of the standard tuning noises. Stradivon then kind of stands up straight and looks around the room and please be seated. The performance will begin momentarily. I'm just going to ask for a real quick, who's got the highest knowledge skill? So we know Cal's got 0. The rest of you are bozos, aren't you? Like Rayleigh and Vanya. 2 from Alfrek. It must be a bit weird for you, Alfrek, then, to see a statue dedicated to the hero Stradivon, like an Asavari hero of legend. Like, it's odd. The statue clearly isn't Stradivon. It's a statue dedicated to Stradivon. But the statue seemingly moves and acts as if they were Stradivon. As if they were this kind of ancient hero of lore. I might put you on the spot a little bit, but what would you say was the story of the greatest victory that Stradivon had that you read about?
Was Stradivon himself a bard?
Stradivon was an incredibly famous swordsman. Music did not play into his history.
I imagine there is a legend of him defeating an entire army, one-on-one combat. It's starting out, one person fighting the greatest warrior that the army has to defeating him, no problem, and then slowly working his way through the whole army until he gets to the leader, who he then challenged in one-arm combat, and the leader ran away.
Fair enough. Yes, and that in itself was indicative. It was proof of how incredible Asavar can become when they exhibit exemplary mastery over their path. And Stradivon's particular path is potentially up in, slightly in question, given how old it is, but perhaps his path was hero of legend. So as you all take a seat, Stradivon glances around the room and thank you for joining me, he says. Tonight will be a night of celebration, happiness and mirth. But we must always cast our minds back to those who are no longer here to celebrate with us. I would like to dedicate this song to the fallen of the Great War. And I would like for you all to join me in memory of them. And somewhat curiously, Alfrek, Stradivon begins playing a dirge of sorts. A very solemn, droning dirge. It's perhaps a little bit difficult to say because the language is quite old, but it sounds like it's the lyrics are interspersed with Asavari prayers of the dead, asking the twin gods Ulivari to usher the spirits. Not Ulivari. Barahan, the soul guide, to usher the recently departed onto the afterlife, and to Ulivari to hasten the process of rebirth so that they may once again rejoin left behind family and friends. It certainly changes the feel of the gathering. Cal, you find yourself trying not to let your mind wander back to some of the more the events that you try your best perhaps to forget from a time all too recent. But as this dirge kind of carries on, it swells to a song of discovery and hope that in fact perhaps death is not the end, but the start of a journey to sit alongside the dragons for the rest of eternity, as the dragons safeguarded us in life. Now, as we pass on, we may safeguard them in death. The song is interrupted by a jingling bell that the three of you, Cal, Rayri and Vanier, would have heard a couple of times tonight already, to indicate that someone has arrived at the tower. The song that Stradivon is playing, so he's fundamentally plucking at the strings in his chest like a harp. It's reverberating up through his chest cavity and out the pipes at the top. They come to a stop as he rests his fingers across the strings at the sound of the doorbell. And the door to the parlour opens, and the small doddery goblin butler, Bendel, shuffles back in.
the Justica has recently arrived and is preparing herself to meet you, to join you. In the meantime, can I get you anything to drink? He says as he looks around the room.
Vanya immediately is like, do you have any ale or something?
The butler just slowly nods.
We do.
A pint of that, please.
The goblin nods.
And for me as well, please.
Hey, good on you. You need to drink some good ale, and I'll make you a fine explorer.
I've never had an ale before.
You'll do just fine, don't you worry.
You watch Cal and Rayri, you watch the moustache of the goblin bristles, like, twitch slightly as this dragon says, like, oh, I've never had that before. 2 ales. And then he kind of goes around, he grabs the drink orders from the other guests. And as the goblin leaves, Stradivon's, fully stopped playing now. And from behind him, surging to his feet, Agathar stands up. And, well, that's killed the mood slightly, Stradivon. We're all here to have a good time. Please take a seat. It's about time that we talk. We get down to the real brass tacks of why we're here. I know you've all been dying to hear about my journeys, and I don't want to deprive you of my tale any longer, he says, with a sort of like a hearty laugh. As he stands, he moves backwards towards the fireplace, and you notice that there are 4 more kind of plinths in this room. They're not kind of locked in place like they were in the trophy room, but there are clearly items on top of some of these plinths covered with like fabric drapes. And Agathar sort of like stops, and he strikes a pensive, like, thinking man's pose. As far as you could see, frozen peaks clawing at the sky like wild beasts. The bitter storms, they lashed at our faces. Not all of us who went on the expedition were strong enough to withstand their hoary touch. Deep into the caves we ventured, the walls encrusted feet deep with ice. There was no light. There was less light the further we went, until we were plunged into total darkness, accompanied by nothing but our bated, waiting breath. And then we saw it. We saw the glimmers in the darkness. We heard the sounds of their movement, and lo, we found them. Giants. A whole village of underground giants. Well, some that I travelled with did not have the courage, and they turned and fled at the sight, lost in the darkness, never to emerge from the tunnels. There were very few of us when we brought the battle to the giants themselves. It was a battle
of titanic proportions. But, as you could well assume, we were victorious. I would not be able to tell you this tale if we were not. And from that village of giants, we brought spoils. Look, and he pulls the first kind of fabric drape off with a flourish, a dramatic flourish, and throws it into the corner of the room. And he points at this thick, circular, like metal band with like holes in it. And Cal, to look at it, it looks a bit like a really chunky, like metal breastplate. This may look like armor to you or I, but it was in fact just a ring worn by one of the giants. That's how large these beasts were. Their fingers the size of men. Once we slew it, we were able to prize this piece of jewellery from its finger and put it to better use. And then, the second drape comes up. And you see a large pearl the size of an apple. We found this as an earring on their queen. Could you believe it? They wore jewellery. Well, after we slew her, we seized it from her ear. She would have no use of it. But, funny story, the poor bugger that picked it up, before we knew what it was, completely blanked out, forgot everything that had happened in the past 10 minutes. Turns out that it can modify your memories. Perhaps that's why the giants weren't doing anything, because she was always forgetting what it was she was doing. What a fool. And he whips off the third drape. And you see a matching pair of, like, curved horns crisscrossed on the plinth. Carved out of a slightly off-white ivory and banded along their length with iron bands. They're your size, like normal size, and we're not entirely sure what the giants were doing with these. Perhaps they were using them as toothpicks. But no, we've discovered that if two people hold them to their ears, it allows them to communicate. I don't suspect for a moment that the giants even began to know that they had these magical items. But it's their loss, our gain. Well, my gain. I'll let all of that settle in. It's a lot of excitement to take in such a short amount of time. I wouldn't want to overwhelm you, much like those cowards that fled at first sight of the giants. But if you have any questions, I am more than happy to answer anything you have to ask. Don't all rush at once now.
Barry's gonna get up and just look straight at the breastplate-looking ring. Is it, once again, is it my height? Is it like eyeball height?
Yes. Yeah, these are lower. Yeah, you can see what's on them.
I can see what's on them. Can I roll with an experience?
What is it you're rolling?
So I have an experience as I used to work in a forge. So can I use that to ascertain if I think it really is a ring or it is used as a breastplate?
Sure.
Because as her parents were armorers,
Yes.
they would probably have an idea of what it would look like if it was made one way or the other.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're using the hope to roll with the experience?
Use that, please.
Yep. It's down to 1.
What would you like me to roll with? Like,
I think
like
I think I'd have to be. I'm wondering if it's knowledge because you're recalling, analyzing, or comprehending.
Not my strong suit, but
Get the +2. You'll be fine.
You get the +2 on top, yeah.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Okay. So, 14 with hope. So back up to 2. You know what? Because you rolled with hope, you tell me. Is it a breastplate that one of the giants went, oh, that fits? Or is it actually a giant's ring that, whilst it's got holes in handily the right places, would just make for a really awkward bit of armour?
I think Rory can ascertain that it probably previously was a breastplate that's been manipulated into.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
looking at it, she's just like looking at the where it's been constructed.
Yeah.
And she can see that it's definitely a breastplate, not a ring.
Okay.
But see how maybe it could be worn as a ring if they really wanted.
It also strikes you that it is a mundane breastplate. Like, it's not actually magical. The other two quite likely are magical. In your experiences, really big gems and items that are with metal bands that come in pairs are, probably magical. But this just looks like, some poor schmuck had a breastplate, met a giant.
Yeah. Giant
ended up with a new ring. So, Agatha is looking around, seeing if there are any questions. But before, Ravi, you figure this out as you're peering at the breastplate. But before Agatha can be asked any questions, the door to the parlour is opened again, and the chef pops her head in to say, dinner is ready to be served. And she looks, and as she enters into the room, there's this beautiful aroma that wafts in behind her. Vanu, it's good enough that it makes you sort of turn and look, perhaps with your slightly heightened senses, but it does smell incredible. And Alfrek, for example, as you turn around and look, given that she's got the elsewhere equivalent of a Michelin star on her chef's hat, you're not surprised. And as she kind of steps out the way, Bendel has come in, Bendel's followed in behind her, the goblin butler.
I have placed your drinks in the dining room. Please follow me,
he says. And as the other guests stand and follow behind Bendel and the chef in the slowest escort quest that you've ever experienced, as this goblin just shuffles along, inches of movement at a time. The two of them make their way into the dining room. The goblin, Bendel, you understand, stands at one end, the chef stands by the door to the kitchen, and as you all start to filter in, you notice that this long room primarily dominated by this large copper-topped table. Well, the large copper-topped table catches your attention first, and then secondly, as you filter in, you notice that on the wall to your right, so the northern wall, you see a large portrait of who the explorers would assume is Ullic. Alfrek, as you wander in, you know is Ullic. It doesn't look quite how you remember Ullic, him being quite an elderly Lorivar. But the painting is of what is clearly a mage, stood atop a rock in the midst of a battle. Luscious, flowing blonde beard, billowing in the wind, matching this beautiful, these beautiful locks of golden hair that kind of radiate, and it looks borderline divine as he's sort of like looking off, like slightly off profile from the viewer, with a wand in each hand. Lightning bolts flying off into the hordes surrounding him. And who would we say who's got at least a +1 in instinct? Rayri and Vanya. So as you look at this painting, and it looks bombastic. He looks surprisingly young in this painting as well, you notice. Like, as you're glancing around and kind of taking it all in, you notice it in the background of the portrait. Among the soldiers and the spells, you notice what seems to be like a collage of Ullic's achievements, like victories. Including what appears to be a sunken city, a grand garden temple smouldering in flames, and a vast overgrown castle. But like, and as you kind of take this in, and you just kind of get the feeling that this Ullic is the absolute bee's knees.
Please take your seats,
says the old goblin butler. And as you do, and you're sort of like tucked in, and the chef starts walking around, placing out kind of, well, I'm doing the flick with the napkin to lay across your laps. Interestingly, you notice that there are enough seats for the three of you as well, Cal, Rayri, and Vanya. So perhaps Ullic does know you're here? Question mark. Yeah, as you're all sat down, the first course begins to filter out. And Vanya, like, you start drooling as these beautifully prepared griffin ribs, smoked griffin ribs, on a bed of crown root battenets and silken greens comes out. And the texture is, the meat falls away from the bone. The texture of the greens is silken. And the goblin butler, as he promised, kind of brings out your drinks. Alfrek, you're provided with an ale, as are you, Vanya. And like, as you're all kind of tucking in and enjoying this meal, you hear the door behind you open. And the goblin butler, like, slowly looks up and,
our final guest has arrived.
And in the doorway, like, stooping to get through the doorway, steps a keeper. All 8 foot of her. Like, ridged horns rising from her forehead. Her hair is naturally kind of like twisted and curly. She wears a blue steel breastplate with kind of brass and silver detailing. Alfrek is probably... Has Alfrek got the highest knowledge?
Yes.
Yes, okay. In which case, yeah, Alfrek, as you turn and look and regard this newcomer, there's a few things that catch your attention. First, that the regalia that she's wearing has a number of identifying features that mark her out as a paladin of some sort, but specifically a paladin of Tione, the architect. The greys, fundamentally the greys, give it away. But the rest of you also pick up, because perhaps this might not be as peculiar for Alfrek, in that most keepers that you've met up until this point have had skin tones of sort of like greens, browns, like earthy tones, much like, say, a Terran sprite. But this keeper has a reddish hue to her skin. Her eyes are bright blue, like crystalline blue, similar to, crystalline in the same way that other keepers' eyes are. But her red hair, her red skin indicates that there's something slightly different about this particular keeper. And Cal, you noticed that whereas the keepers that you might have seen have a relatively hairless tail with a tuft at the end, the tail that swishes behind this keeper looks wolf or fox-like. It's furry, it's furred all the way from base to tip. As this paladin walks in, she's got her left arm kind of bent and held on some straps. It's clear that she's injured her arm recently. But as she steps in, the goblin says,
"Ladies and gentlemen, just a car, Valana."
And the keeper nods to you all, being mindful to not bump her horns into the chandeliers that are floating overhead. Good evening, all. Please stay in your seats. There's no need to get up. As she looks around, she takes a seat in one of the empty seats, and sort of like quietly says her hellos to the other guests, and as she does, and like her meal is served up by the chef, the goblin continues,
"Well then, now that we are in attendance, I will fetch the Archmage. Please excuse me."
And he begins the painfully slow shuffle out of the room. And you see the keeper paladin sort of like pout sympathetically as he toddles out. How many keepers have you met, Alfrek?
I imagine not a huge number of keepers.
Sure.
I don't think many visit my father's house in the middle of the city. I've probably seen one or two. I've certainly read about them.
Yes.
But this may be my first time properly meeting one up close. I think Alfrek is entranced. Big heart eyes at this woman across the table.
Sure. I mean, she strikes a very bold, commanding silhouette. From your extended academia and reading, Alfrek, you know that this keeper given how she looks, she presumably might hail from a deserty climate. You know that other keepers adapt to their natural surroundings, being slightly more in touch with elsewhere than the other lineages, the other people of elsewhere. But yeah, you can see that, like, as she steps in, her hooves look like they would handle like hot sandy ground better than the hooves of a more arboreal keeper, for example. Yeah, as you kind of take this all in, the mayor, Mr. Montgomery, the Terran sprite, turns to Valana and Valana, my dear, I'm so glad you could join us. I've had no time to thank you for helping out with that little vineyard dispute a few weeks ago. Truly appreciate it. And sincerely, the keeper responds, I'm happy to serve you and the lands. No thanks are needed. And then she turns to regard the four of you. Alfrek, I don't believe I've had the pleasure of meeting you three.
Fine. Cal will obviously sense that he is the only adult in the group. Vanya is eating. Ray's probably just like, ooh. So Cal just said, my name is Cal. We are explorers of elsewhere. We're here to meet Ullic.
The Justicar nods and explorers. Well, it's been some time since we've seen explorers. We were fortunate enough, being that this town was fortunate enough to be discovered during the rediscovery. It's been a while since we've seen any of your folk. I hope that you're here on good tidings rather than ill. She looks down to the far end of the table and kind of raising her voice slightly. Agatha, I know you made your way back from the frozen north 2 moons ago. How fared your expedition? And the Wolfkin mage at the end sort of like, what? Like paying attention, kind of puffs his chest out. And as he goes to, like, Cal, you feel the throb in your forehead as you can sense that Agathar's about to go off on one. You hear a scream from somewhere in the manor, like behind you, towards the parlour, like towards the foyer, I should say. And there's a hurried shuffling, and then you watch as Bendel, the butler, rushes through the door and trips at the last moment and splays out, his cane clattering across the wooden floor. And he's gasping, and his tiny little eyes are as wide as they can be in horror. There's obviously a commotion around the table as everyone kind of stands. You see Valana immediately stand up to go pick this goblin up, as he sort of like, tries to catch his breath. But before she can get to him, the goblin looks to you all at the table and the Archmage is dead. As the other guests gasp around the table, you all watch as Alfrek, you watch Lady Gwendolyn sat opposite you, just like she gasps, clutches a hand to her chest, and then faints and passes out, like drapes backwards. Slumps onto the arm of Stradivon, who sort of like immediately kind of reaches out to grab her. And as the paladin stands up and sort of like looks to you all and the goblin's kind of on his hands and knees looking up to you, just like with a sob catching in his throat. The Archmage is dead. And he looks at you all, one in turn. Cal, you take a glance, and I suspect curse, as that gut feeling you had going into the trophy room seems to have borne fruit. What are your immediate reactions?
There is a murderer in this house who has either been invited or not invited. So, Cal is, I think, one of the first things that he does, apart from curse, standing, like, curse under his breath. He doesn't just shout the word very loudly, but he gets up, he, moves over probably straight to Bindle, along with the Justicar. And strangely for Cal, because he doesn't seem to come across this way, he is quite tender as he talks to the goblin. It's like, what happened? What did you see? Tell me as much as you can.
In which case, as you ask the question, and this goblin is looking at you, like his pupils dilated in shock. Like as you're crouching down talking to him, and you sense the presence of the Justicar coming around to kind of join you, as the rest of you kind of look around the room and wonder who or how this might have happened, who did this, or how it might have happened. We'll call it there. What a surprise, eh? Who'da thunk? Who'da thunk?
See, I was hoping, because I hate the guy so much, that, like, we were going to eat, and then this, Agatha was like, I'm the best, so I should get to eat my soup first, and then he just goes, bleh! And then the cook set up, and then the cook's like, it wasn't me, I was framed, and then we had to go, it could have been that, and I was like, I hope so. It's both, because Cal thought he was a pain in the ass.
It was not. It was not. But no, as Nate has pointed out, that there has been a murder in this house. And perhaps you will find yourselves embroiled in the mystery as to who it was. So, yes, congratulations. Welcome once again, Georgia, to the fold. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for playing. Just real quick. Nate's in the chat, but I'm gonna shout out for him anyway. In a fortnight's time just over a fortnight's time from today, PrideCafe is happening in Bristol, which is a comic and arts fair, kind of created for, by, with the LGBTQ plus community. Really, really amazing stuff. You should 100% check it out if you're in or around the Bristol area, because it's hella free, and the sheer quality of the art on display is amazing. There's talks as well by some sort of like really prolific members of the kind of art community. So yeah, 100% give that a shout. And if you're there, say hello, because I'll hopefully be there as well. There's also something else that some of our players are doing. I just wanted to shine a little spotlight on.
Cool. So Georgia and I are currently working on a audio fiction podcast, which is a horror, like a fan fiction horror podcast called The Homeward Foundation. And as we record this tomorrow, our teaser trailer gets released. So if that's your bag, please do check in tomorrow at some scary point in the day, where we'll be releasing all of our trailer stuff on social media. Georgia, would you like to add anything?
probably tell people where they can find us. You can find us at the Homeward Foundation, most social medias, and at www.thehomewardfoundation.com. We post world-building extracts on our Tumblr, so Tumblr is a good place to be. We've just closed our casting call for our ensemble, but I'm sure we'll have other things coming up soon. And yes, tomorrow at some point we will be posting our trailer, which is very, very exciting.
Yes. We are super excited about it.
Very
Thank
good.
you for letting us do a shout out. Thank you very much.
You are more than welcome. Yeah, it sounds like a really exciting thing that you've got. So, yeah, looking forward to that. So, the other two, they haven't got anything going on. They're boring.
No.
So,
where did you get those maps from, Dan?
these maps are my own creation. Yes, it was a real quick jobby just to give you something all to look at. But yeah, works for that. If you enjoyed watching us bumble through a murder mystery, make sure to hit the like button. You know what? It'd be really good if we could have comments in the description, comments down below on who you think is a murderer straight off the bat. And then to find out if you're correct, it would be a really good idea to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications when we release new videos, because we've got loads and loads of stuff going out. We've got this happening, we've got Blades in the Dark Campaign 2 happening, we've got a Warhammer Old World one-shot rolling through, there's I'm going to be playing some Fallout London, which I'm a voice actor in, there's just so much, so you wouldn't want to miss out. Yeah, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for playing.
Thank you.
Yeah,
We'll see you next time.
Bye.